Hello, everybody, and welcome back to Anglo Election Insights. So it's been a good couple of months since the May federal election in Australia, and I thought we might just have a first look at how the map might be shaping up at the moment, just with how I'm reading the political winds and any sort of little changes that I'm suspecting may have happened since the campaign period. So obviously you had a situation in the federal election where probably a lot of swing voters swung quite sharply to Labor quite late. There's been a lot of theories as to why the pollsters didn't pick them up during the campaign period or even in a lot of their final polls. You can find discussion there from the likes of Kevin Bonham and so forth. But basically, with some of the post-election polling that we've seen, it doesn't appear that a lot has changed. And now pollsters are picking up that Labor have a huge commanding lead. And I guess immediately post-election, sometimes polls can have a bit of a bias towards the incumbent. Their supporters are going to be feeling a lot more energized, a lot more engaged. They might be answering more polls. So there could be a bit of a response bias. That sort of thing can sometimes happen. But at the same time, I think what we've seen is the coalition are sort of on a course at the moment that isn't really appeasing either the moderates or the conservatives in the party, and that's probably reflected in some really weak primary vote numbers. Of the polling that we have seen, just note the approval ratings of the leaders. Anthony Albanese, slightly in the positives, it would seem, enjoying a pretty decent lead over Susan Ley, but not any more so than he was over Dutton coming into the final week of the campaign. So it's not like as if Albanese as leader is experiencing this massive second honeymoon. It's more, the weakness of the Liberals at this point that gives Labor its lead, I would say. We've had outfits like Morgan, 57, 43, similar numbers in News Poll, Resolve. So all the pollsters returning to the field and finding support pretty strong for Labor. But very weak for the coalition, a little bit out from the election results. So I thought, let's just have a look at the map and see how this kind of environment might actually play out if there was an election held tomorrow, for example. So at the moment, I have Labor on 95 seats. I think that's a net gain of 1, the coalition on 41, the Greens on 1. I have the Teals picking up some seats, they're on 9. And others on 4, so unchanged. I think Labor, in terms of the Northern Territory, have probably strengthened their position a little bit. There does seem to be some sort of a perception that the country Liberals are going maybe a little bit too hard on crime up there, not really engaging, particularly with the more sort of remote regional communities, and perhaps that had something to do with the federal result in Lingiari. Similar kind of story up in North Queensland. I think the new member wouldn't have any problems there. I'm not seeing big shifts in regional Queensland. I don't think that's really an electoral battleground anymore. In any case, if we zoom in a little bit, probably as you get more into the Wide Bay and Bundaberg region, that's where the swing is a little bit more on. In this sort of environment with seats like Wide Bay and Hinkler becoming a little bit more marginal, I would actually think that a couple more months of this kind of polling and Labor would probably be ahead in a seat like Fairfax, and we know it's pretty close in Fisher. Zooming into Brisbane more specifically, I actually have the seat of Ryan going to Labor now. I think with the coalition, yes, they're a bit lost, particularly with that sort of moderate suburban voter base, particularly that more kind of affluent suburban moderate voter base. But they're not the only ones. The Greens also, obviously they lost a bit of support in those kinds of seats and Labor gained a lot of support. I think at this point of the cycle, with the polling looking the way it is, Labor absolutely could take that seat off the Greens. And then down in Bowman as well, I have Labor just winning that seat. There was a Demos AU poll that came out which showed I think Labor's about 50-50 in Queensland, which would indicate pretty strong levels of support in Brisbane itself, and then they would be very competitive in McPherson as well, I believe. Probably not a whole lot of change in regional New South Wales, but as we get in towards Sydney, so the Teals holding their seats, including in Bradfield, and then Labor, I think, are in a position to take Barawa at this point, with the polling looking the way it is, and they'd be very close in both Mitchell and in Lindsay. Daly's still hanging on in Fowler. Hughes and Banks still Labor marginals. Maybe Angus Taylor receives a bit of a haircut in Hume as well. Cook's still relatively safe for the coalition, and Andrew G wins in Clare still. So then we get to some of the Teal pickups. I think Labor has left a little bit of room on their left flank, and Jesse Price and over in Fremantle, Kate Hewlett are probably well positioned to run again and take those seats off Labor, even if Labor's support appears quite strong in a battle with the coalition. We saw that just because the headline two-party preferred figure might look bad for the coalition or good for Labor, it doesn't necessarily have a huge amount of bearing on how the non-classic seats tend to fall. So that's a pickup opportunity, I think, for the Teals at the moment. As we go into Melbourne, I've got Bendigo remaining a Labor marginal. Couldn't be sure if the Nats guy would run again. I think he might be turning his attention to the state seat of Bendigo East, or at least the party wants him to. Then as we zoom in towards Melbourne, I have the Liberals just hanging on in Latrobe and also in Flinders, but again, further polling that shows that sort of commanding support for Labor would probably have me reconsidering that. And then some interesting non-classic results, which you guys are more than welcome to disagree with, but I'll try my best to justify them. I think the recent political focus on Israel and Gaza is really influencing me here. I think that probably plays well into the coalition's hands in seats like Goldstein. And then in Kooyong, I'm also factoring in some of the sort of background positioning that Frydenberg is doing, which, whether or not he ends up running or not, it does seem that his sort of people are positioning themselves in the branches in the Kew and Hawthorn area, which would potentially point to him being someone who could run again. And just in that part of Melbourne, I think the Israel-Gaza issue and the politics around it probably favour the coalition a little bit more than the Teals. But then if we go to the inner north of the seat of Wills, I think if that contest was held again in the next couple of months, the Greens would actually get up. I think the situation in Gaza has intensified, and it's probably there's probably more of a understory, or under like a groundswell, I should say, of support for like recognizing the state of Palestine, that sort of thing. I don't want to get into the politics, but basically I think Labor's probably going to be dragged into going a little bit harder on that issue. The Greens are well and truly already there, and I think if the contest was again held in Wills again, that would probably work out more in the Greens' favour. So I have them picking up that seat despite losing Ryan. And then I don't think Alex Dyson would run again in Wannon, so that would revert to a pretty safe Liberal seat, I think. Looking, no real change in Adelaide. Grey, the marginal regional, and then Adelaide being a Labor sweep. Down in Tassie, no real change either, although with Dutton off the ticket, maybe Braddon and Bass become slightly more marginal. Maybe they don't, I'm not really sure. And then finally over in Perth, so as I mentioned with the seat of Bean, I think the Teals have a really good position, a really good prospect of winning that seat. Tangney would remain safely Labor. They would keep Moore, they'd keep Bullwinkle as well, but as soon as the coalition start getting back within sort of 54, 46, those kinds of numbers, I think Bullwinkle probably flips back, and I think they would be okay in Forest as well. The big danger seems to come from the independent there, who may not run again. All right, so that should just about do it for today. Just a quick update on federal politics. I'll come back every few months and put out a video like this to try and keep track of where I think things are at. I hope you enjoyed it. If you're not a subscriber but you are watching the videos regularly and enjoying the content, please consider subscribing to the channel. And if you enjoyed the video, please give it a like, comment your thoughts. I'd love to hear what you guys are thinking. I'm sure I missed certain things, and it'd be good to turn the comment section into somewhere where people can scroll down and see even more sort of informed discussion about Anglosphere politics and the implications for some of these electoral maps. So thanks guys, enjoy the rest of your day. I'll see you in the next video.